So welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody is doing well, and in this video we're going to have a revisit of the MTR105 rotating machine tester from Mega. And the reason for that is there has been a firmware upgrade, which is the second firmware upgrade for this instrument since I've purchased it. I'll just swizzle around onto the screen so hopefully you can see it if it focuses. Okay, it's manual focus then. So hopefully you can see the screen there. When you look at the top, the GUI version, graphic user interface, is now 010203. Previously it was 010104, and the measurement version is 105, and previously that was 104. So they've both been upgraded, and this upgrade came out on the 3rd of October of this year, 2022. And alongside that, they don't issue any details of what the upgrade does. However, they have put out version 5 of the operator's manual now, so that's an upgrade as well. So it's well worth downloading that alongside the firmware upgrade if you do want to do this. Let's zoom back out around so you can see everything. Now, I'm not going to go through the actual firmware upgrade. I've got a previous video on that. This upgrade went in exactly the same manner as that. It takes about 5 minutes overall. If you do want to see what happens during the firmware upgrade, I'll leave a link to that video in the description box below. Alongside that, there is also another video that goes through the testing of this little motor here using the previous firmware. So if you do want to see how the instrument operated beforehand, then you can go and watch that video as well. I'll leave that link also in the description box. So we will start testing this motor. The first difference that we're doing is that I'm going to take a temperature measurement of the case, because this instrument can now temperature compensate resistance readings. It had it previously for insulation tests, but this firmware now gives it the opportunity for winding resistance temperature compensation as well. So I have to take the temperature of the motor first and save that. So that's now recorded. I'll slip round to 4-wire measurement that we need to do. Excuse me while I swap the leads over. So it still has the same help screens on this. If you want to, if you get stuck with the actual connections, you can press that at any time and it'll tell you what to plug into the instrument ports. So we've done that. So we've got our selection here. We've got auto. We've got the actual measurement function there, and we've also got temperature compensation. So I can turn temperature compensation on, and what I can also do with this one that we didn't have before is I could do a 3-phase measurement. So we'll clip him on there, him on there, like that, does it? There we go. So we can test that. So we are L1 to L2. It does my measurement for me. Okay, now what I actually have to do is tell it which measurement that was. So I'll tell it this is L1, L2, and it's saved it. I'll go on to the next one, which for me will be L1 to L3. I'll press the test button again. And I need to save that to L1 to L3, and then my final one is L1 to L2. Like that. That's not good. So once you've done one test, it gives you the differential between them, percentage differential, and do the final test, and then I'll have to tell it again. So it's L2, L3 to me. I'll tell it it's L2 to L3. That gives me the overall differential between them, and then I can save all those readings to memory. So that's the winding resistance done 4-wire. We also have, we can escape and go back to the menus and select something different, because it's still got the original ones in there. You've got the unidirectional test, bidirectional test. They've added this 3-phase and the temperature compensation, and you've still got auto or manual mode as I was using it in there then. So that's that one done. We'll move to some testing of the 2-wire resistance testing, if you like, which is this one here. And we've got the same options with this one that we can have now. We can do bidirectional test, we can do a 3-phase test, we can do a diode test, and we can do a unidirectional test as well. So I did the actual earth bond test last time using this, so we'll do the same again with that. We will need to, I'll need a probe, so get a probe and go on to the inverter, which is probably out of picture with this. Yeah, just out of picture. Actually, over just here on the earth connection on the inverter is what I'm measuring. I've got a 0.29. We can save that one as well. Okay. Come off. We'll put him back onto the probes. Okay, and then we are on with LCR, I believe. Let's do that one now, because in terms of this function, we've also had an additional item on this with regard to 3-phase measurement as well, which operates exactly the same as the winding resistance. If we select it, we've got auto, we've got our inductance, we've got our 3-phase measurement there. So we can go. So I've got 94.2. Again, don't need the third one on yet, let's take that one off. Go L1 to L2. Do the test again. 90.6, so that's L3 to L1. Do the test again. 92, and that's L2 to L3. So that's all of those. We'll save those. Okay, put my probe back on. Oh, I'm in Delta, aren't I? So I can't do a 3-phase insulation test. So that's me being silly there, isn't it? So 500 volt insulation resistance test. Again, we've got temperature compensation we can put on. We've got our insulation resistance. We've got 3-phase, which has now got temperature compensation on it. But when we go to pi, you lose temperature compensation as before. For a timed, you can have temperature compensation again, which is an addition. That didn't used to have temperature compensation on it. If I go to DAR, you again lose it. So we have got temperature compensation on the time, so I can do it with that one. And I can just hit the go button and it will give me a 1-minute insulation test across the 3 windings. We'll have to let that run for the 1 minute. But as before, we've got a little time clock down there on the countdown, and we've got our voltage and our current being measured, and then the actual resistance reading on the main screen. So there's our resistance reading. We can save that one as well. Now the other one we can do on this is direction of rotation test, which shouldn't be any different before, I would assume. We'll go around to that one. So direction of rotation, we spin the motor. Yeah, it does. Takes a little bit of spinning, but it does get there in the end. We can save him as well. So that's all the motor tests that have been done. Pretty much covered off the main differences. So if we just get back to the settings, we've got here on our ohms, we've now got temperature compensation. We go into that. We've got our normal temperatures here on the right hand side. We've got both copper and aluminium. Not 100% sure what that's for, because I've never come across a motor with an aluminium winding. Maybe they do exist out there. Certainly squirrel cages on a motor, such as this little three-phase one, will have aluminium squirrel cages, but I've never measured the resistance of them. So I'm not 100% sure why you would want that, and I've just gone and selected it. So let's just nip back in there and set that back to copper. So that's that one there. We also have our temperature compensation for our insulation resistance test. We have not scan temperatures. We used to have A and B on the motors. We now have THS and THP as two extras for the motor class. I presume they're tucked away in a standard somewhere. I'm not familiar with those terms myself. So there's that in there as well. And I think that is pretty much the modifications that it's been made. The other one, final one, there are obviously DAR and PI on this as well. I'll go through them on the actual motor winding simulator afterwards. What I will just do for this final one is go to voltage measurement, because I had issues with this on a inverter previously, so we'll see if anything has happened to that. Hook him up to our little inverter that is out of shot at the moment. Let's just get them both in picture. Kind of in picture, aren't they? Let's need to go to, we've got AC, and there's our three-phase and phase rotation. Let's go up there and see what happens. We are at 47 Hertz. That doesn't, no, that's still the same. Let's just zoom in. Doesn't look like they've done anything to that at all. You can see the voltages are bouncing around. That's 50 Hertz. That should be on max now. It's 1000 volts. It's just not working properly on that one, so they haven't put a filter on that. But no doubt my little filter that I made beforehand does still work. Let's just zoom out. We'll turn off, and I'll plug that in just to make sure. I don't think there'll be an issue. So you can make a filter to solve this problem, but it did surprise me because they've got true RMS on the single phase measurement. It's okay then. Let's see what happens. Yeah, now we get our phase rotation. Zoom back in, so we've got our phase rotation now, and we've got our 220 volts all stable. Not a problem, so an external filter will solve that, but a bit disappointing of Mega not to be able to resolve that really. So we'll clear this away and I'll set up the winding simulator, and we'll take a look at how the DAR and PI and insulation test functions are operating with with regards to temperature compensation measurements. Okay, so we've just come to the end of a PI test on the winding simulator. Just here we've got a PI of 7.96. You notice that I don't actually have the DAR value either, which is one of the ones I would have liked to have seen this record both the PI and the DAR at the same time. I will download the results onto the computer and just see if it's recorded in that, but my suspicion is it's not. We'll just make sure we've saved that. So really there's no real change to the way that the DAR and the PI are functioning. I don't have temperature compensation. I don't record the DAR when you're doing the PI test. So that's all the tests done. As I say, we'll download them onto the computer to see if there's any difference between the certification that we were producing and the one we produce now. Okay, so moving on to the software side. I've also updated this as well. This is now PowerDB Lite version 11.2.10, which was updated from version 11.1.4. This is the old certificate from the original firmware on the MTR105, and you can see the resistance test there. They've got their own one for each phase measurement that I made, and you get both directional readings plus the average, continuity there, directional rotation, temperature compensation, insulation tests, and you see the LCR results again. They've got their own measurement that you'd have to rely on the fact that I've done this as L1, L2 and L3 in that order. That's those there. Moving over to the new certificate now, and we can see change here, the three-phase temperature compensated resistance reading. I've now just got each phase. Again, it doesn't label it. You'd have to assume that that's L1, L2, L3, but you've lost the two bidirectionals. I presume these are just the averaging readings that are on there. Continuity, no real difference. Still hasn't got the ohm sign coming out, still has the ampersand. Direction of rotation. Insulation test here. You can see the time test and the PI. I haven't got the DAR data on PI there, so that's still missing. And the LCR we've got a bit of an issue with. The three-phase one, I've lost the other two measurements. However, if we go to the actual screen on the MTR105 and pull back the results, you can see that the results are there, and also the percentage differential is also there, but when you try and transfer it into the software, it doesn't look like it's coming across properly. I haven't done any more work on that, and maybe a resolution to it, maybe something I'm doing. I've tried a couple of different ways of doing the tests, saving it at each test instead of just as a three-phase test, but that hasn't worked either. So not sure what the issue is there. Might have to go back to Mega support with that one. And then if we just move on to the winding simulation, all I'm interested in really here is the temperature compensation test. That's working on a time test now, which is great, but insulation resistance we've already seen. We don't get DAR data with the PI, and I can't do temperature compensation on the DAR measurement either. So it's and that, for me, obviously there's a workaround that you can do each test individually. It's just, for me, just increasing the test time, whereas if I could do everything just as a polarization index test and I got the DAR data and I got temperature compensation for that, then I just need to do the one test instead of having to repeat tests. So it's just work efficiency really for that one. You can still do and get the data all you want, you've just got to do more testing. So that's it really. Still a few issues. In general, I think it's worthwhile doing the firmware upgrade. A bit disappointing that the issue with the voltage measurement hasn't been resolved. And obviously we've got the issue now with the software and the transfer of the inductance readings, which don't appear to have worked too well. But other than that, all seems pretty good. That'll be it for this video. I hope you found it useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.